Welcome to the Disrupt Education Podcast. I'm Peter Hostrasser. Thank you so much for being here. Hit that subscribe button. We've got a great guest today. He's the superintendent of Western Maricopa Education Center, and that is located in the greater Western Metro Phoenix area in Arizona here in the States. And he is Greg Donovan. Greg, thanks so much for being here.
It's a pleasure. I look forward to this conversation. Thank you.
I have looked forward to this for a while, and let's get into it, man. So, superintendent of the Western Maricopa Education Center, tell us a little bit about what that means and what are you doing right now?
Well, at Western Maricopa Education Center, our goal is to empower students to begin to explore and find their career pathway, to find their passion, to become credentialed or licensed in a particular field of study that allows them to begin to enter the workforce. It does not delineate that they can't go on to higher education. In fact, our students in much higher numbers want and demand more education because now they have point and purpose to their life. So we're all about career and technical education as being part of the main piece of their educational system. It's a piece that for too long we haven't had much discussion about. What's the end goal of a good education? What is the end goal of a good education? Is it not to be a productive and responsible citizen and be able to afford and support the lifestyle that we choose to live?
I think we can end the podcast there because that's exactly Disrupt. But let's dig into that a little bit. So you have had your own educational path. I'm guessing it wasn't straight A's, 4 years of college, everything is quote unquote traditional. So let's walk through the journey of Greg as a student and then all the way until you are in this facility and now you are spreading the word and helping other people connect academia and reality.
Well, I'm going to say I was atypical for the time that I grew up. I had a stay-at-home mom. I had a dad that worked in the retail world, suburbia. I went to school. I kind of did what I was supposed to do. Nobody ever talked about careers. Nobody said what you want to do. And for some reason, I was attracted to the trades, if you will. My mom has a picture of me when I was 5 years old holding a saw and a hammer and two boards. And she said to me, "What is it? What are you doing?" And you said, "I'm going to build a house." That stuff just always intrigued me. And the short story, I get to high school, I go into my counselor and I tell him I want to go over to the vocational center and take the construction program. And he looked at me and said, "No, you don't." I said, "Well, yeah, I do." He goes, "No, you don't. You need to go to college and make something of yourself." Now, here I am, a high school student who constantly is struggling with the why. I passed everything, but I did the minimal amount of work. If my mother could be here today, she would say for the 12 years of my education, every teacher she ever visited with said the same thing. Greg's not trying, he's underperforming, he's got so much potential. Well, the issue was nobody could tell me what I was going to do with it. I was the student sitting in the middle. I wasn't going to be in the front. I wanted to do more than sit in the back row, but I raised my hand and say why, and they could not answer me. And then this counselor decides that my future isn't what I want, it's what he wants. And that somehow going to college, and my favorite line to this day when somebody says, "Well, yeah, my kid's going to college," or "I'm going to college," or "all of our students go to college from this high school," and my two words that I say every single time is "to do." And nobody has an answer. That somehow going to college, you just fall into a career and you live happily ever after and you're highly successful and you got your house and your kids and, you do your thing. It doesn't work that way. Nobody ever talked to me or my friends about what is it you're going to do for a living. And as this world has changed over the last many years, most students today, here's a question I ask people to ask all the time. Go to your own children, but go to the neighbors, go to your nieces, your nephews, and say, "What do your parents do for a living?" And they cannot answer you. There was a time when they could say, "My dad's a farmer. We milk cows. My dad, runs a blacksmith shop. I'll even have kids say, "My dad does construction." I'll say, "Well, what does he do?" "I don't know." "He drives a white pickup truck." What does that mean? because our kids don't see what people do for a living. So we just don't talk about careers and how do you get there. And if this is what you're interested in, or this is a passion, how do you get there? We just, for 75 years, have been selling this thing. To be successful, you need to go to college, which really meant to be successful, you need to attend a 4-year university. But we use the word college all the time. And we divert students away that somehow working is a 4-letter word. Work is not the enemy here. We should spend more time tying the need for our comprehensive education back to what it is. What do you want to do with your life? And I think today, more than ever, we hear about all these people changing jobs. It's a gig society. It's not about going to work at the plant for 40 years. It's not about getting on down at the assembly plant. That stuff is gone. So what is your passion? What are you going to do? And as we saw through the recession, and we're currently seeing, while this is no recession, this is a boom time, but we have a labor shortage, connecting people with skills with the employers that need those skills. We got too many people that don't have the right skills, and we got too many people with the right skills that aren't in the right place. And we just don't want to talk about it in America. We don't want to connect these dots. That again, somehow, my child's going to be an engineer. Great. What kind of engineer? Going to be an electrical engineer. Well, have they taken any electrical type? Oh, no. They're not going to be an electrician. They're going to be an electrical engineer. Would it hurt to understand what it is they're doing? And as a high school program, I have parents get very upset. My child is not going to be a medical assistant. They're going to be a doctor. So as a high school student, getting a clinical experience, doing an internship in a doctor's office is a bad thing. Oh, you're not listening. They're going to be a doctor. We need to change the perspective of what is a quality education. K-20. All of it. How do you get where you want to get? And I'm going to go back to this. How do you become a contributing person in our culture and our society and become economically viable? I'm not talking about going to work for the man. I'm talking about being economically viable and participating in our communities and our society. And we've got to change it because there is a need for every aspect of education. English, mathematics, science, history, geography, all those things are necessary, but we have got to tie them together to what it is we're trying to accomplish.
If I'm hearing you correctly, and I'm a parent as well, and I hear parents say the same thing as your counselor did in high school, is they're doing it for themselves. It's more of a, well, my kid's going to be this or my kid's going to be that, or same thing with that counselor. How are you changing that mindset, or what are some of the aspects that we need to place in a system to really start to get even bigger traction in larger areas? Because you are exactly right. The skill sets, if I ask a student, I just asked a senior yesterday, who are you and what are you about? And they had trouble answering that question as a 17, 18-year-old, which is, to me, a shame. Obviously, that's a failure in the system. So how are ways that not only are you doing it at West Mech, but how do you visualize people changing that? Is it the damage that we are seeing right now, especially in a gap of a workforce? What do you think is going to bounce people out of that mindset?
First of all, it's attitude. I believe it's all about attitude. We're out there every day promoting this, and a lot of people say, I had no idea. I've never heard of this. I don't know. Are we excited about the work we do? Are we excited about what we're promoting? Right now, today, the construction trades, among many occupational areas, but right now we're hearing a lot about the construction trades just can't find any workers. And I've said to a lot of these organizations and companies I'm talking to is, what are you doing to attract people and make this look like something they want to do? And you just kind of get this blank stare. Well, we pay well. Well, okay, but again, if you don't know what it is, or you don't even hear about it, what makes them know that this is something they might want to do? We have worked very hard to change the image the history of what used to be called vocational education. Now we're calling it career and technical education, and all the way from our buildings to what it is we're teaching. 20 years ago when I started Westmec, some people might listen to me for a while and they said, Craig, are you talking about shop? And I'd smile and say, well, I guess you could say that, but it's not. I don't hear that anymore. And why? Because all those old programs went away. So the parents I'm talking to today have not even had that, what I went through, and had some old-fashioned shop experiences, which wasn't about learning a skill. That was really about hobby. That was about home maintenance. That was about keeping some of the boys busy during the elective period because they didn't know what to do with them. And the old proverbial, well, they're not really college material, so we'll send them out to the shop. And then when they graduate, they'll go down to the plant and they'll get on at the plant. Very, very old-fashioned thinking. The problem is a general education is generally good for nothing. Who's going to hire you as a generalist? I haven't seen any ads lately for a generalist. I've not seen any ads for a liberal arts degree. What I see is people saying, I need people that can do this. And then to move up, they need to learn this, this, and this. And we need to help connect that. And what's happening, Peter, is that we now have parents that lived through the recession and some of that who are extremely well educated, but they couldn't connect the dot. They lost their job. They didn't have the right technical skills. And they're saying to their own children, we've got to do this different. You've got to get the skills that people want. They're also seeing that learning these skills is not a detriment, that getting a medical assisting license from Westmec helps you get into the system and maybe go to work for an employer that has tuition assistance. So then you go on towards that baccalaureate or even master's degree, and you're not saddled with debt for 35 years because you're working for a system that helped with that. You're in a good system with good benefits. And we have so many parents today and so many people that have lost benefits. They've gotten so expensive. A lot of employers are looking for ways to get out of benefits, but we all need them. So it's all interconnected as a community, as a society, and as a workforce. Right people, right job, right skills. And how do we find our passion? Everybody knows somebody. All of us have had a job at some point in our life that we didn't wake up in the morning feeling very excited about. And we all know that when you wake up in the morning and you're doing something you're excited about, it's an entirely different day. We're helping young people and adults find their passion and pathway. It changes lives.
Do you find in my high school courses that I'm teaching, and this is what I'm finding that the younger generation actually gets this. Like they understand that I don't want to pay. I have so many students, Greg, that are like, I don't want to just box in my parents and pay $170,000 on an education because I know I can go this other route and or I have this interest. Very similar to your own path. And the way that the counselor made that decision or tried to make that decision, if you will. Are you seeing that? What are the youth? What are the participants coming through? Do they have this mindset that it is, hey, look, this is something that yes, and they're fighting with their parents, or is it they're also still kind of drinking the Kool-Aid?
Well, it's a little bit of all the facts, but Westmec now is about 18 years old. We're a relatively young school district in the big scope of school districts. But even 12, 14 years ago, 13 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have students, because I asked this question. I go out and visit with students in a very formal and often informal way. Hey, tell me, how did you get here? How did you learn about us? Did your parents fight this? Did your friends tell you you were stupid for doing this? It's interesting what you get. 10 years ago, I got some yeses and yeses and yeses. Today, I'm getting very few. oh no, my parents were supportive. Oh no, my friends went, oh, I've heard of that. So we're building some momentum. Yeah, we used to get some, oh yeah, my mom, my dad, my grandpa, whatever. They weren't very excited. Oh, I thought you were going to go to college, but you know what? We're not for everybody. I'm not trying to recruit 100% of our community into this process. What we're reaching towards is that 20 to 30% of the students that are already saying, this is what I think I want to do. And to put it in a perspective that most people might be able to think about is athletics. Nobody questions the football player that sticks around till 9 o'clock at night, goes to school and then does practice and does all that. Comes home at 9 o'clock at night, does their homework, quick shower, quick dinner, gets up the next morning, back at school by 7 a.m. and does it all again. In fact, they slap them on the back. Well, what about the kid whose passion is just as deep for pharmacy or fire science or auto tech or one of the building trades? They're willing to go. This is their passion. This is their football field. This is where they want to be. This is what gets them up in the morning. We have many families tell us, and we have students tell us that their entire grade structure, that their core class grades, everything went up because they're excited. For the first time, school's making sense to them. The teacher's talking about history of, why do we do this? Well, let me tell you some history behind it. Let me tell you about why we do it this way in this part of the country and this way in this part of the world. And it all has to do with geography, temperatures, climate. Wow, see, it starts to make sense. Where forever we've played this game of, well, you need to learn it because, and well, if you're going to go to college, you need to know this. We have to, all of us as human beings have got to put it in some kind of perspective. And we're helping to put that in perspective. 96% of our students, when they leave us, have higher education aspirations. That's what they tell us. Because now they have a goal and a purpose. 60% came through the door with that aspiration, which surprises some people, because they assume these are the kids that don't want to go to college. Well, 60% of our students had it, but they were already ready to get on that pathway. We have people in the dental assisting program that want to be dentists. We have people in the medical assisting program that want to be surgeons. We have people in the pharmacy tech program that want to be pharmacists. They see the pathway and they're wanting to learn now. And they're ready for it. Not everybody, but
right.
Our students are ready.
Crystal clear pathways like that are clarity is a hell of a thing. That's what I always say. And for youth who understand that, I run into so many seniors. Now, I'm in a traditional high school in the Chicago area. And you get the question from the seniors who, I'm asking, so what's your next step? Or I'm writing a letter of recommendation and I kind of want to go into business. And I do the same thing as you. So, and where do you want to go? What kind of business do you want to? Well, I don't know, right? And they have zero experience and it's not built in. So with that being said, I wanted to ask you a little bit about, so as a participant, a student coming to your school and these opportunities, how is it different? What does a day look like for a student walking through your walls and being out and experiencing things? How is that different? What does it look like that is different than a traditional educational path, if you will? And I say that with a powerful, yes in there, because I'm one of those 20 to 30%. And I'd fair to say that my son is one of those 20 to 30% who kind of know that it's not quite what a traditional quote unquote path would be. So what does that look like for kids?
Well, for all your listeners out there, let me start with the answer. It's different in different places. In some parts of the country, a student would make a choice to go to this type of environment, a career tech environment, and spend their entire day. They would get their core classes and their career program all on the same campus. Ohio does that, and some others. In the state of Arizona, the student would spend a portion of their day, I want to simplify this by saying half of their day on their traditional campus, whether that be a traditional comprehensive, charter, private school, online school, there's so many things now today, to get their core courses. Then they come to us for the career portion of the day. For West Mech, that could be anywhere from 2 hours to 4 hours a day, depending on the program. And we have different structures. Some are a 1 year, some are a 2 year. As an example, our aviation, airframe, and mechanical program is 1,900 hours of instruction. Some of them are as low as 450 hours of instruction. So it depends on your career field as to how many hours of instruction and so how long that takes. So aviation, A&P, airframe and power plant, is 2 years of 4 hours a day, plus 2 summers of 8 hours a day for 20 days. That's to get in that 1,900 hours. And yet the emergency medical technician program is about 7 or 8 hours a week for one semester. So see, it's all over the place. So what are you doing? So part of their day is in a traditional setting and part of their day is with us. That's the simple part of this. They get both. And so they make that decision. And quite bluntly, if they decide that we're not for them, they go back to that other setting and they pick it up and go in some other direction. In some states, again, they get their career and their core all on the same campus, and there's a variety of those things across the country. But that's how it operates here. We are not a diploma granting institution. The credits they earn with us apply towards their high school diploma, and we transfer them back to that system that they are enrolled in, and it's applied towards their high school diploma. So there's still a Hawk or the Eagle. They still participate in that other system as well to their level of what they want to do.
I'm happy that the aviation is a little longer. That makes me feel safer in the air, Greg. I am an airplane buff, if my listeners didn't know that. I love that. So here's the big question. Greg, you're the lawmaker now. You're the guy who can say, all right, we can eliminate this part of education, add this part of education. In your experience and being in 20 years in this business and leading what I'm going to consider a tremendously effective CTE program, that it's much more than that, but where students are actually hands-on and living with a purpose and walking out with skill sets, credentials, all these things. What are one or two things that you're going to build in and or take out of a system to maybe help more people understand and move forward, with becoming, people who are, economically viable?
Well, let me start by saying we are running in the same system. High school is 4 years. I would dare to say that for most of this listening audience, your great-grandmother's high school system was 4 years. We've added 60, 70, 80 years of history to the curriculum, and we've not added 1 day of instruction. So if I was the king for a day or the legislature for the day, first of all, I think we need to look at the amount of time we spend in school and whether today 12 years is appropriate. Maybe it should be 14. There's a lot more to accomplish. We've added a lot of requirements. In 1975, there were 15 required credits in the state of Arizona to graduate from high school in a 24-credit system. That gave a student who was struggling several opportunities to make up for failed classes, to catch up, and or take a number of electives and sort of figure out what they're doing. Today, there are 22 credits required in a 24-credit system. There's no room left. And we've added a lot of stuff. I'm not saying that what's been added isn't important. I'm not saying that at all. But today, a lot of these students can't put CTE into the system because they're just working to check the boxes to get that basic high school diploma that doesn't really qualify you for anything. That being said, Peter, what would I change? The emphasis all the way through the system on students. We're doing this today because here's what you would do if you did this. We could start this in very young grades. This is where you use this, the why of education. My history is you walk into some of the youngest primary grades and people are so proud to say, Greg, watch what happens when I ask these second graders, how many of you are going to college? And every hand in the room goes up. Because they've already been told repeatedly, to be successful, you need to go to college. They have no clue what you're talking about. Why aren't we saying, even to those second graders, what do you think you want to do someday? And we used to do this, and they'd say fireman and policeman and teacher. Why? Because that's what they saw. But that's okay. Well, if you want to be a fireman, what does that mean? And we spend more years, because we don't need to add more to the system. We need to change the conversation. I don't think we need to add one more class on careers. I don't think we need to add one more class on jobs. We need to change how we present the information and what you do with it. Arithmetic, mathematics, higher mathematics needs to be taught around the concept, what would you do with this calculus? Right now you take calculus because you need to put it on your application that you took it to get into the right university. Period. What do you do with calculus? What do you do with trigonometry? What do you really do with geometry? We require all this stuff, but nobody knows why. So when you ask me the question, to me, if I was king, I would change the direction of what we do with the time we have. And I really think we need to add a year or two to the K-12 system and call it K-14 or something, because there is just so much to do today. There was a time that all of this was based on an agrarian society, getting people into the workforce, getting them down to the plant, that they'd learn the basics they needed to do to function in life. We've added an awful lot to the system. Maybe we need to add some more time to the system. And do we need to be cranking people out after 12 years and saying, okay, you're done with your required formal education? I think those are some interesting things we could wrestle with as a society and as a culture.
The more interesting things you can dive into and experience, and the more time with that. Appreciate that, Greg. Thank you for sharing that. And I do think you should be king for a day, my friend. Let me ask if anybody in our audience wants to connect and maybe chat a little bit about CTE, what you do, and connect with West MEC. How can they connect with you?
Well, very simply, they can go to our webpage, at www.west-mec.org. West MEC stands for Miracle Education Center. You can always reach directly out to me at greg.donovan@west-mec.org. We would love to hear from you. Go to our webpage. There is a way to communicate back to us. You will be reached back to, but we're out there and you can get right to us. We'd love to show off. If you're in the greater West Phoenix area, we love to give tours. We love to show people what we're all about. Career and technical education today is nothing what it used to be. And if the one thing that makes me smile is how many, I want to use the word adults, come on a tour or with us or some kind of an adult group or chamber group or realtor group that comes through and goes, I had no idea. And the other fun one, high school sure didn't look like this when I went to school. Well, I hope not, because this is 2021, 22, not whatever the past was.
Right.
We need to prepare these young people not only for the day, but part of our mission statement is about preparing for careers of the future. I cannot teach what doesn't exist, but I can prepare a mindset that education never stops and your career never stops growing.
Greg, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing your thoughts on disrupting education. I am now thinking about moving to West Phoenix, just saying. But no, I really appreciate it. And please go check out, it is west-mec.edu. That'll get you there as well. And there's some amazing programs that you have. Thanks so much again for being with us, Greg.
Can I close with one thing?
Please do.
I want to abbreviate a quote from former news anchor Tom Brokaw. There is a place in America to take a stand, and that stand is in public education. Thank you, everybody.
Love that. And we'll end there on Disrupt Education. Thank you all so much for listening. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.